Welcome back. News about former President Trump being indicted for a second time now is, of course, what Washington is talking all about these days. And we get to discuss that major development with Congressman Chris Pappas, who joins us in studio. Congressman, just off the bat, your initial reaction to this second indictment over mishandling of classified information?
Well, I think it's a somber day for the country, and we'll obviously learn more on Tuesday when the indictments are unsealed in federal court in Miami. I'm deeply concerned with the news of these charges, but I think it's important to know that no one is above the law, including the President of the United States, the former President of the United States. I trust our independent judiciary to be fair with this case. And I think that we have to understand that everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. That's the case with Donald Trump with respect to these charges. But they appear to be serious charges, and it's something that we're going to continue to monitor as we move forward. I would hope that no one would jump to political conclusions here and target the Justice Department, the FBI, other agencies of law enforcement that are just trying to do their job with respect to this issue, as they do across the board. So we're going to be watching this. And look, Donald Trump is a twice impeached former president of the United States. I have gotten to know the ways that he has gone beyond the bounds of his oath of office, has violated it, and has violated the law, I believe, in the past. And I hope we can get to the bottom of this in a fair way with a decision that the country accepts.
You said you don't want people jumping to conclusions. Speaker of the House, many of your Republican colleagues are already saying this is a weaponization of the Justice Department. How do you achieve justice when half of the population, or a segment of the population, thinks this is just a witch hunt? Well,
people need to take a beat. And I think we can all step back for a moment and appreciate that this has been a pretty fair process. There's been news that's come out during different points of this. The president, former president, has spoken on the record about this and has been very clear about his mishandling of classified information. So I think we should all be concerned about this, protecting the secrets of our country, our national security. But I think it's about trusting the process. This did not come from Merrick Garland. It came from a grand jury of Americans. And moving forward, that's who will be judging this. It will be a fair process, and we should all just accept it and not be playing politics with it in a way that can undermine confidence in our courts.
Let's turn to the debt ceiling deal. That's now in the rearview mirror, but there's always that next crisis. What needs to be done in order to not have a gun put to the head of the economy every time we come to this debt limit situation?
Well, it was a travesty that we even got up to the line, because we saw a credit downgrade in 2011 when there was no agreement to the very last minute. And it hurt the United States economy and our standing in the world. And I believe the same could continue to happen as long as this is an issue that is weaponized. Now, there were a lot of demands that the Republicans were making. In the end, it was positive that the president and the speaker were able to negotiate in good faith. And I'm glad that a lot of the demands that the Republicans have, including cuts to programs like Social Security, veterans benefits, Medicare, were taken off the table. In the end, we got a deal that maybe you can find some fault with, but it was a good deal that allows us to pay our bills, puts in place some spending caps that will cut the deficit by $1.5 trillion over the next 10 years. That's an important step, and will allow us to continue to go about our work. And in some ways, I'm a little bit more optimistic about our ability to come together as a Congress to push the extreme voices aside and focus on the work at hand. Now the appropriations process is up and running. There's a defense bill that's being worked on. We'll be in our Transportation Committee working on FAA reauthorization next week. We're paying close attention to the toxic exposure issue with respect to our veterans that was protected in this deal. And getting it right at VA is going to be an important priority. So there's a lot of work that has to happen out there. The only way we're going to get things done is by working together. And I hope that's the legacy of this deal. This shouldn't be the be-all and end-all. It should be an opening first offer that allows Congress to continue to get together around its responsibilities, including controlling spending in future years.
Last year, an election year, you were very critical of the president's debt forgiveness plan. No way to make policy, you said. But the House just voted on a resolution to roll back that policy, and you voted against that resolution. Why?
Well, the disapproval resolution went beyond just disapproving of the $10,000 debt forgiveness, which I thought should have gone through Congress in the first place and should have been more targeted to folks that were struggling to pay their bills. But it would also have impacted folks that have benefited, millions of Americans, from the payment pause on student loan debt. So I think it was far too broad. And again, it doesn't answer the question of how we make college more affordable moving forward. The answer to that isn't just to undo what Biden has tried to do. That's going to continue to be adjudicated in court, by the way. We expect the Supreme Court to weigh in on that any day now. But we should be focused on how we lower the cost of college by expanding Pell Grants, tuition assistance programs, all the things I hear about around New Hampshire. And again, that can only be done in a bipartisan way. So this was a partisan political effort to try to undermine the Biden administration. I think it was too broad, would have been too onerous for a lot of borrowers. And we should move forward in a way where we look at not just providing relief to folks who need it, but to the folks that are struggling to pay for school now that want the skills to be able to get out in the workforce and earn a good paying job.
On the opioid crisis, you just got a piece of legislation across the finish line in the House that would keep the fentanyl analogs like carfentanil on Schedule 1 permanently rather than just on a temporary basis. It's a technical change, but what is this going to do in terms of fighting the drugs that we have on our streets here in Manchester and in New Hampshire?
This was a temporary change that was first put in place by the Trump administration, then continued by the Biden administration. We were able to write legislation and pass that extended this on a temporary basis. But this is permanent across the board scheduling for fentanyl analogs, which are highly dangerous substances, as we know all too well here in New Hampshire. We've got to make sure that law enforcement can stay ahead of the cartels as they change the recipe for some of the fentanyl that's coming into this country. We've got to make sure that we start with the presumption that these drugs are deadly, that they're being brought here to kill Americans, and that law enforcement should be equipped to stop them and bring to justice those that are trafficking these substances. We've got a lot more work to do. This doesn't end the conversation because this is a small piece of the puzzle, and it's part of the enforcement puzzle for sure. We're also working on the issue of fentanyl being ordered over the dark web, better technology at our border, making sure that we're going after the precursor chemicals in China. But we also can't be ignoring the fact that we need to invest in, over a period of years, a sustainable framework of treatment and recovery that's going to assist people in New Hampshire when they need the help. So it's both supply and demand. This was an important bipartisan win, and I hope the Senate will pass it soon. But we've got so much more work to do to make sure that we're saving lives.
All right, Congressman Chris Pappas, thanks so much for joining us on Close Up. We appreciate the time.
Thanks, Adam.